The day I found the hotel keycard tucked in Madison's coat pocket, my world didn't shatter. It crystallized into perfect, painful clarity. My name is Lewis Campbell, and I'm 36 years old. I still wake before dawn, make my bed with military corners, and keep the same house I bought before our marriage 12 years ago. Madison, my wife, always called these habits boring, but Reed Parker, my best friend since high school and now my attorney, saw them as the foundation of my character. I'd brought Madison flowers every Tuesday because I believed ordinary days deserved celebrating. Now those same receipts sit in a manila folder next to rideshare statements leading to hotels I never knew existed. Some men might have exploded with rage, but I chose a different path. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. That Tuesday evening I was hanging up Madison's coat, a habit from all those years of small gestures, when I felt something slip from the pocket. The hotel keycard clattered against our hardwood floor, landing face up next to a scattered trail of crumpled receipts. My hands didn't shake as I picked them up. Maybe they should have. The kitchen clock read midnight when I finally heard her heels clicking up the driveway. I'd spent those hours at the dining room table, arranging those pieces of paper like a puzzle I never wanted to solve. The rideshare receipts formed a pattern. Every Thursday afternoon for the past 2 months leading to the Westbrook Hotel downtown. Madison breezed in, dropping her purse on the counter. She didn't notice me at first, humming some unfamiliar tune as she reached for a wine glass. The overhead light caught her wedding ring as she turned. Late meeting? I kept my voice steady. She startled, then recovered with that smile I used to love. God, Lewis, you scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark? I slid the key card across the table. The humming stopped. Want to tell me about the Westbrook? Her laugh felt like ice water down my spine. Oh, Lewis, is this really how you want to do this? She didn't even glance at the evidence. I've been trying to find the right moment to tell you I need something new. This life, it's just so predictable, I supplied, remembering all the times she'd used that word lately. Boring, she said, and the casual cruelty in her voice made my chest tight. We're boring, Lewis. I'm suffocating in all this sameness. I thought about our first apartment, how we'd eaten ramen on a second-hand couch and dreamed about building something lasting. The memory tasted like ashes now. 12 years deserves more than this, Madison. 12 years deserves honesty, she shot back. So here's honest. I'm done. I left the key card on the table between us, a small plastic monument to broken vows, and drove through the pre-dawn streets to Reed's house. He answered the door in sweatpants, took one look at my face, and waved me inside. Don't react yet, Reed said after I'd laid it all out. He was already thinking like a lawyer, even at 5 a.m. Document everything. Bank statements, credit card bills, text messages, anything that establishes a pattern. You go nuclear now. You'll regret it. She's going to file, I said, knowing it in my bones. Then we need to be ready. Reed's steady voice anchored me. This isn't about revenge, Louis. It's about protecting what you've built. I spent that morning pulling statements and downloading records, creating folders with methodical precision that helped keep the hurt at bay. The sheriff's deputy found me at my desk at work, serving divorce papers with an apologetic shrug. That evening I stood in our bedroom, my bedroom now I supposed, staring at our wedding photo on the dresser. Madison's smile looked different in hindsight, less joy and more performance. The man standing beside her, though, I made a silent promise to him, that version of myself who still believed in forever. I wouldn't let this break what mattered most. My integrity, my home, my sense of justice. The frame felt heavy in my hands as I laid it face down in the drawer. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and court dates, but tonight I just needed to breathe through the first wave of this new reality. The process server caught me walking to my car after work. Young guy couldn't have been more than 25, with an apologetic smile that made everything worse. Mr. Campbell? Sorry about this, sir. He handed over the thick envelope like he was passing on bad news about a dead relative. I sat in my car reading through pages of legal language that boiled down to one truth. Madison wanted everything. The house I'd bought before we married, my retirement accounts, Even my grandfather's old truck I'd restored during COVID. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, remembering weekend afternoons in the garage, Madison bringing me cold beers while I worked under that chassis. Had she been planning this even then? The next morning, she was waiting in the kitchen when I came downstairs, dressed for court like this was just another business meeting. "Let's make this simple, Lewis," she said, sliding a stack of papers across the counter. "Sign everything over, and we can both move on with our lives." Simple? The coffee in my mug had gone cold. "That's what you call taking my house?" She rolled her eyes, that familiar look of contempt I'd been seeing more lately. "It's been our house for 12 years. Don't be difficult about this. I bought it before we met." My voice stayed level, though my pulse was racing. "You knew that when we married. And now I know better lawyers." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Sign or this gets ugly." I called Reed the moment she left, my hand still shaking from holding back everything I'd wanted to say. He answered on the first ring. "I'm already on it," he said before I could speak. "Meeting you at the courthouse in an hour." Reed worked like a machine, filing emergency motions to freeze our joint accounts and protect my premarital assets. I watched him navigate the system with practiced ease, speaking the language of affidavits and exhibits like it was his native tongue. For the first time since that hotel keycard hit the floor, I felt something close to steady. The temporary orders hearing came fast. Madison sat across the aisle with her attorney, a shark in an expensive suit who kept shooting confident smiles our way. But when the judge reviewed our exhibits, documentation of the house purchase, proof of my sole ownership before marriage, those smiles faded. "Motion for temporary alimony denied," the judge announced, peering over his glasses at Madison's lawyer. "And the residence shall remain in Mr. Campbell's possession pending final hearing." Relief hit me like a physical wave. Walking out of the courthouse, Reed clapped my shoulder. "First round goes to us. Get some rest tonight." I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. At home, I was just starting to unwind when my phone buzzed with a credit alert. New loan notification. $175,000 against my home equity. My stomach dropped as I opened the app, staring at the unfamiliar transaction glowing on my screen. The loan was in my name. The signature looked like mine, but I hadn't signed a damn thing. I barely remember the drive to First National that morning. The world had narrowed to the stack of loan documents on my passenger seat and the drumbeat of my pulse in my ears. 12 years of marriage, and somehow, I'd never noticed Madison could forge my signature perfectly. The branch manager, Mrs. Kim, recognized me from all our years of regular banking. Her professional smile faltered when I spread the papers across her desk. "This isn't my signature," I said quietly. "I never authorized this loan." She studied the documents, then my face, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. "Mr. Campbell, these were processed 2 weeks ago. The funds have already been dispersed." The room seemed to tilt. "To where?" "I'll need to pull those records." Her fingers moved across her keyboard. The transfer went to an account at Meridian Trust. I remembered the smell of fresh paint when Madison and I first walked through our house. The way she'd squeezed my hand and whispered, "It's perfect." Now someone had used my name to steal it right out from under me. Back in my car, the weight of everything finally hit. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, and let 1 minute of raw grief break through. Just 1 minute to feel the magnitude of betrayal, to acknowledge that the woman I'd built a life with was trying to destroy me. The dashboard clock ticked forward, and I pulled myself together, reaching for my phone. Reed answered immediately. "Lewis, what's wrong?" "Someone took out a home equity loan in my name." My voice sounded strange, distant. $175,000. Jesus. I heard papers rustling. "Where'd the money go?" "Meridian Trust, some account there." "Give me an hour." Reed's tone shifted to pure business. "Meet me at my office." The next few hours blurred into a parade of bank records and transaction histories. Reed's paralegal, Leah, tracked the money like a bloodhound, from First National to Meridian Trust, then bounced through 3 more banks before landing in something called Coastal Holdings LLC. "Shell company," Reed muttered, scanning his computer screen. Registered in Delaware last month. He looked up at me. This wasn't random, Louis. Someone planned this. I nodded, feeling oddly calm now that the shock had worn off. Madison's handwriting on the loan documents. A company created just in time to hide the money. I met his eyes. She's trying to drain the house before the divorce is final. Reed leaned back, his expression grim. We need to confront her, carefully, with evidence. Already texted her. I checked my phone. Meeting at Riverside Cafe tomorrow morning. You sure you're ready for that? I pulled out copies of the loan documents, Madison's signature from our marriage license for comparison, and bank records showing the twisted path of transfers. Time to see her try to lie her way out of this. Reed nodded slowly. Remember, stay calm, no matter what she says. Document everything. I gathered the papers, each one a piece of armor against whatever was coming next. I'll record it too. Let's see her explain this to a judge. Heading home, I remembered the first time I'd caught Madison in a lie. Something small about a dinner with friends that didn't add up. I'd brushed it off, telling myself everyone needs their secrets. Now I wondered how many other betrayals I'd missed while keeping the faith. I texted Madison one more time to confirm. 9 a.m., don't be late. Her response came quickly. Fine, but this better be worth my time. I set my phone down, spreading the evidence across my kitchen table. Time to show Madison exactly what her time was worth. The morning fog hadn't lifted when I arrived at Riverside Cafe. I chose a corner table, spreading my evidence like playing cards while waiting for Madison. The familiar scent of coffee and pastries reminded me of countless Sunday mornings we'd spent here together, back when comfortable silences felt like love instead of warning signs. Madison walked in at 9:05, designer purse swinging from her shoulder. Even now, seeing her made my chest ache. Not with longing, but with the ghost of trust I couldn't quite shake. She slid into the seat across from me, her perfume cutting through the coffee-scented air. What's all this? She gestured at the papers, her wedding ring catching the light. The same ring I'd saved 3 months' salary to buy, back when promises meant something. Take a look. I pushed the loan documents forward. Particularly interesting signature here. She barely glanced down. And? That's not my signature, Madison. Of course it is. She stirred her coffee, the spoon clinking against ceramic with precise measured taps. Though I have to say, this desperate act isn't a good look on you. My jaw tightened. $175,000 against our home. Money I never approved, never saw. Maybe you don't remember signing. You've been distracted lately. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Stress does funny things to memory. The old Madison, or the one I thought I knew, would have flinched at being caught in a lie this big. This Madison just watched me with cool amusement, like I was some mildly entertaining stranger. I don't forget protecting my home. I kept my voice steady, though my pulse hammered in my throat. Never have, never will. She tilted her head, studying me like a curious bird might study a worm. You know what your problem is, Louis. You think everything has to make sense, that if you just gather enough evidence, the world will suddenly become fair. She leaned forward. Life doesn't work that way. No, I said, but the law does. Something flickered behind her eyes. Uncertainty, maybe fear, but vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. She leaned back, crossing her arms. Is that a threat? It's a fact. I tapped the papers. Just like these are facts. The silence between us hardened into something sharp and cold. Madison's smirk never wavered, but her fingers drummed against her arm. A tell I recognized from 1,000 poker nights. She was bluffing, and we both knew it. If we're done here... She stood, gathering her purse. My lawyer will be in touch. They'll be very interested in these documents. She paused, looking down at me with what might have been pity. Oh, Louis, still trying to control everything. She shook her head. You never did understand when to let go. I watched her walk away, her heels clicking against the tile floor. My hands shook as I gathered the papers, anger and adrenaline coursing through my veins. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too warm, too full of memories I couldn't trust anymore. Outside, the fog had finally burned away, leaving behind a sharp, clear morning. I stood on the sidewalk, breathing in the cool air, letting it steady my racing pulse. In my pocket, my phone recorded every word of our conversation, one more piece of evidence for whatever came next. Reed and I sat in a stark office downtown, watching Dr. Sarah Chen examine the loan documents. Her magnifying equipment looked like something from a crime show, but her methodical process grounded me. The gentle whir of her machines reminded me of Madison's sewing machine, the one she'd use late at night when anxiety kept her up. Strange how memories sneak up on you even in moments like these. The pressure points and letter formation are distinctive, Dr. Chen explained, adjusting her glasses. See these loops in the Y and P? They're consistent with other samples you've provided. Reed leaned forward. You can confirm it definitively? Beyond reasonable doubt. She laid out comparison documents, our marriage license, holiday cards, birthday notes to me. The forgery matches Mrs. Campbell's natural handwriting patterns. Whoever signed these loan documents, it wasn't Mr. Campbell. Relief hit me like a physical wave. I closed my eyes briefly, remembering all those nights I'd stared at those documents, wondering if I was losing my mind. When you've lived with someone for 12 years, you think you know their limits. But there's always another level of betrayal waiting to be discovered, isn't there? 3 days later, we were in court. The familiar wood panels and formal atmosphere felt both comforting and suffocating. Madison sat across the aisle, perfectly composed in a navy suit, but I could see tension in her shoulders. She hadn't expected this day to come. Reed stood, straightening his tie. Mrs. Campbell, let's discuss the loan taken out against the marital home. What about it? Madison's voice carried that same dismissive tone from the cafe. We have a forensic report confirming the signature isn't my client's. Care to explain? Madison's laugh was soft, practiced. I'm not a handwriting expert. No, Reed agreed, but Dr. Chen is, and she's prepared to testify that. A buzz cut through the courtroom. Madison's phone lit up on the table. I watched her eyes drop to the screen, saw the exact moment the color drained from her face. Even from where I sat, I could make out Javier's name. The message glowed accusingly. You're married? You lied to me. You're on your own. Don't contact me again. Madison's fingers trembled as she tried to swipe the notification away. Too late. The judge had noticed the disruption. Mrs. Campbell. Judge Harrison's voice carried that particular tone of judicial displeasure. Is there something more pressing than these proceedings? No, Your Honor. Madison's voice cracked slightly. I apologize. Then perhaps you'd care to address counsel's question about the loan documentation. I watched Madison's throat work as she swallowed. The confidence that had carried her through months of lies was crumbling. Her eyes darted between her attorney, the judge, and that damning message still glowing on her phone screen. The courtroom fell into heavy silence. Even the usual shuffle of papers stilled. Judge Harrison leaned forward, hands clasped, waiting for an answer that would either damn or save her. I felt the weight of 12 years of marriage pressing down on that moment. All those shared dinners, holiday plans, quiet Sunday mornings, all of it balanced on the edge of whatever Madison would say next. The bailiff's voice still echoed in my head as I drove to work the next morning. My tie felt too tight, but I kept it straight. Appearances matter when you're up for regional manager. 12 years of solid performance reviews had lined up this promotion. I needed this win, especially now with legal bills mounting. My boss, Angela, met me at her office door. Louis, got a minute? Her expression made my stomach drop. I remembered the same look on Madison's face the night before she left, that mix of sympathy and distance. We have to put the promotion on hold, Angela said once we were seated. HR received a complaint about inappropriate conduct. The words hit like ice water. What complaint? She slid a printed letter across her desk. Anonymous, of course. Allegations of harassment, misuse of company resources, unstable behavior. Every accusation calculated to sound just plausible enough to require investigation. This is garbage, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the pulse pounding in my ears. You know my record. I do, Angela sighed. But we have to follow procedure. Investigation could take weeks. I nodded, numb. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Who else but Madison would know exactly when to strike? Or maybe Javier trying to protect himself now that he knew the truth. The familiar taste of betrayal filled my mouth again. That evening, I called Reed from my car, still parked in the company lot. My hands shook slightly as I held the phone. "They're trying to break me," I said. The words came out rougher than intended. Remember that summer afternoon when Madison and I painted the kitchen? How she dabbed my nose with yellow paint and laughed? Now she was systematically dismantling my life, piece by piece. "They're desperate," Reed replied. "The forensics report has them cornered. This complaint? Classic deflection tactic. We document it, add it to the pattern of harassment." I rubbed my eyes. "I'm tired, Reed." "I know, but we're close. The deposition next week will—" "What if they have more surprises? Then we handle them." Reed's voice carried that steady confidence I needed. "Truth doesn't need complex schemes, Louis. It just needs sunlight." Later that night, I sat at my home office desk, the complaint letter spread before me under the lamp's glow. The house felt too quiet. I traced my fingers over the anonymous accusations, sensing Madison's desperate cunning between the lines. Or was it Javier's attempt at revenge? Either way, they wanted me broke, branded, and buried. My jaw clenched as I studied the letter. The same hands that had forged my signature were now trying to forge my character. But paper lies burn in daylight. Reed had taught me that. I straightened in my chair, squaring my shoulders against the weight of it all. They thought they could define me with lies. But I knew who I was. The same man who'd paid every mortgage payment, who'd kept his word for 12 years, who still believed truth mattered. That man wouldn't break. Not from this. Not from anything they threw at him. I set the letter down, my fingers steady now. Let them play their games. The deposition would show everyone exactly who was lying. The conference room felt smaller than usual that morning. Maybe it was the way Madison perched at the far end of the table, her lawyer hovering beside her like a nervous shadow. Or maybe it was just the weight of 12 years pressing down between us. Reed sat beside me, his suit jacket draped over his chair, sleeves rolled up like he was ready for honest work. The court reporter settled in, fingers poised over her stenotype. I remembered teaching Madison to type on our old desktop computer, her laughing as she hunted and pecked at the keys. Now she wouldn't even meet my eyes. "Let's begin," Reed said, his voice carrying that calm authority that had steadied me through months of chaos. "Mrs. Campbell, please state your name for the record." Madison spoke her name like a challenge. Her red blazer looked new, probably bought with the money she'd stolen from our home equity. The thought made my jaw clench, but I kept my face neutral. "Mrs. Campbell, I'm showing you Exhibit A," Reed began, sliding the bank statements across the polished table. "These transfers to Coastal Holdings LLC, can you explain them?" "I'm not familiar with that company," Madison said, but her fingers twitched against her water glass. Reed nodded as if he'd expected this. "Interesting, because here's Exhibit B, incorporation papers for Coastal Holdings, filed 3 days after the fraudulent loan. Your signature appears on page 4. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Madison's lawyer leaned in to whisper something, but she waved him off. "That's not my signature." "Exhibit C," Reed continued unfazed. "The forensic handwriting analysis confirming these signatures match multiple known samples of your handwriting, including your marriage license and recent credit card applications." I watched Madison's composure crack slightly. She'd always hated being caught in lies, used to storm out of rooms when I called her on even small deceptions. But there was nowhere to storm to now. And finally, Exhibit D. Reed placed Javier's text messages on the table. "Communications from Mr. Torres expressing shock at discovering your marital status and explicitly referencing discussions about financial matters." Madison's face flushed. "He's lying. He knew everything." "The timestamp on these messages corresponds exactly with our last court session," Reed pressed. "When Mr. Torres learned the truth in real time." I studied my hands, remembering how they'd trembled that first night I found the hotel keycard. Now they were steady. The truth has a weight to it. Solid. Undeniable. "This is harassment," Madison snapped, her voice rising. Louis is trying to ruin me because he's jealous, because he's boring and controlling and— Mrs. Campbell, Reed interrupted gently. We're discussing documented financial fraud. Your personal opinions of Mr. Campbell aren't relevant to these proceedings. The court reporter's fingers clicked steadily, recording every word. Madison's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear again, but she jerked away from him. I did what I had to do, she said. I deserved— To commit forgery? Reed finished. To defraud a financial institution? To attempt to steal a home that was purchased before your marriage? Silence filled the room like smoke. I thought about that home, every mortgage payment, every repair, every memory built within those walls. Madison had tried to take it all with a few strokes of a pen. The judge cleared his throat. I believe we've heard enough. Final statements? I felt the weight of judgment hovering over us all. 12 years of marriage balanced against a stack of damning documents. Reed gathered his papers, and I saw in Madison's eyes that she finally understood. Her schemes were about to collapse, and this time there would be consequences. The judge adjusted his glasses, scanning the stack of exhibits one final time. My heart thundered against my ribs, but I kept my breathing steady. 12 years of marriage had taught me patience. Now it would teach me about justice. Having reviewed all evidence presented, the judge began, his tone measured but firm. This court finds substantial proof of financial misconduct on the part of Mrs. Madison Campbell. I felt Reed's hand briefly touch my shoulder. We'd fought for this moment, document by document, truth by truth. The court therefore rules as follows. Mrs. Campbell's request for alimony is denied in full. Furthermore, she will assume complete responsibility for the fraudulent loan obtained through forgery of Mr. Campbell's signature, including all associated penalties and fees. Madison's lawyer shifted uncomfortably beside her. I remembered how she used to shift the same way when caught in small lies early in our marriage. The pattern had always been there. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Additionally, the judge continued, Mrs. Campbell will pay restitution of $50,000 to Mr. Campbell for legal fees and damages. The home in question is confirmed as Mr. Campbell's premarital property, with no claim by Mrs. Campbell. This court also forwards evidence of financial fraud to the district attorney's office for review. Relief hit me like a wave, but I kept my face neutral. This wasn't about winning. It was about truth finally breaking through. The aftermath moved like a landslide. Within days, Madison's firm terminated her employment after reviewing the court's findings. Financial misconduct, they called it. The same patterns she'd tried with our home equity had appeared in some client accounts. I didn't take pleasure in her downfall, but I recognized the justice in it. Then came the text from an unknown number, Javier. I'm sorry, he wrote. If I'd known she was married, I never would have. She told me she was divorced. I've blocked her completely. Good luck. I deleted the message without responding. Some chapters don't need more words. That evening, I pulled into my driveway, bone-tired but standing straighter than I had in months. The porch light cast warm shadows across the front steps. And there, huddled against my door, sat Madison. Louis, she whispered, her voice thick with tears. Her mascara had run, leaving dark tracks down her cheeks. Please, I have nothing left. My job, my reputation. I know I made mistakes, but can't we try again? For everything we had? I stood at the bottom of the steps, keys heavy in my hand. The woman crying on my porch looked nothing like the polished adversary from the deposition, nothing like the wife who'd laughed while asking for a divorce. She looked broken, but broken things can still cut you if you try to pick them up. We can start over, she pleaded. I'll get counseling. I'll make it right. Don't you remember how good we were? For a moment, I did remember. Sunday morning pancakes, road trips where we sang off-key to old songs, the way she used to curl against me during thunderstorms. But memories aren't marriage, and trust once shattered doesn't mend with tears. Please, Louis, I have nowhere else to go. I looked at Madison there on my doorstep, tears streaming down her face, and felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, no lingering desire to comfort her. Just a profound, settled calm. The storm had passed, leaving clarity in its wake. There's nothing left to try again with, Madison, I said quietly. You didn't just break trust, you tried to break me. The house, my job, my reputation, you went after everything. She wiped frantically at her cheeks, smearing mascara further. I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing. Please, Lewis, you're the only stable thing I've ever had. That's the problem, I replied. You saw stability as boring until you needed a safety net. But I'm not your backup plan. The porch light caught the shine of fresh tears in her eyes. Once, that sight would have cracked my resolve. Now it just reminded me how many times she'd used tears to manipulate truth. Where am I supposed to go? Her voice cracked on the question. That stopped being my responsibility the night you laughed about needing something new. I moved past her to my door. Goodbye, Madison. The lock clicked with finality as I shut the door, leaving her and everything she represented on the other side. Through the peephole, I watched her slowly stand, wrap her arms around herself, and walk away into the darkness. The last glimpse of my old life disappearing into shadow. The next morning, I called a locksmith. Watching him replace the front door lock felt like closing a chapter. No, like starting a new book entirely. The brass key caught the sunlight as he handed it to me, solid and gleaming with promise. I hung it on a simple nail beside the mountain photograph I'd taken years ago on a solo hiking trip. The image showed a peak wreathed in morning mist, stark and beautiful in its solitude. Together, the key and photo made a perfect symbol of what I'd fought to preserve. Not just walls and a roof, but sanctuary. Peace bought with truth and principle. That evening, I brewed a single cup of coffee. My favorite dark roast that Madison had always complained was too bitter. Standing in my kitchen, I watched golden hour light pour through windows I'd cleaned myself, filling rooms I'd reclaimed not just legally but spiritually. The house felt different now. Lighter, like it could finally exhale. Steam rose from my mug as I walked to the entryway where that brass key caught the last rays of sunset. I remembered Reed's words from months ago. Hold your line. I had. Through every attack, every lie, every attempt to make me doubt myself, I'd held steady to what I knew was right. The truth had been my compass, leading me not just to legal victory, but to genuine peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing who you are and standing firm in that knowledge. I touched the key gently, watching it swing slightly on its nail. Peace comes when truth stops asking permission to be seen, I said softly to the quiet house. The words settled into the stillness, feeling right, feeling true. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.